Cool. So we should be going out live. Gus, how are you, man?
Good, man. Awesome. How about you?
Good, man. It's Thursday afternoon and the dog is super excited. So
Yeah. Should have heard my voice. He started barking.
just a beautiful voice. Yeah, it's good.
Right.
Well, good, man. Yeah, I think we had talked about this. We had done this back in, what was it, July? Was when it
Yeah, I
was?
don't know. Whenever you were in town last, that was good.
Yeah. So
That
really
was
enjoy.
pretty late though. We did it at like 1 in the morning or something after the game.
It was like an hour from now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I appreciate you keep staying up a little later and doing a little after hour stream with us. So,
No worries.
but anyways, yeah, I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit and connect with you and have a drink. So
Oh yeah.
if you have a drink,
You're
feel free to
you're
join.
you're all fancy and stuff. I just have beer.
Just beer.
Obviously.
Just keep it
That's
simple.
Dude, I play rugby. Like we just drink beer. That's what I do. Actually, before we get started, I just wanted to congratulate the Springboks, world
Oh,
champs. That's my team as well. After the
nice.
U.S. Eagles, I am a big fan of the Springboks. So, congratulations to the world champs, and yeah, beer for them as well.
Cheers to
So,
that.
cheers, man.
Well, that's good.
It's nice. A beer someone gave to me. It's Kona Brewing. I don't know. I guess it's from Hawaii. It's
Yeah,
pretty good.
I've had that on the West Coast a lot.
Pretty good
Comes
stuff.
around here.
All right.
It's good. Um, yeah, I think we'll see how often we do this, but yeah, I don't think this needs to be super formal or anything like that. I think we
No
really
script.
no script. Yeah,
Just like the podcast. I love it.
3 hours later.
Yeah. It's always funny, like whenever I do the podcast, people ask me, it's like, how much time do you spend, editing the 1 hour or whatever the show was? And I'm like, nothing. I just whatever we record, we post. Like
Yeah,
I don't edit anything. Whatever you hear, that's what you get. So
that's where you came from.
no script, no editing, just like if you were talking to a couple MVPs. That's how I like it.
Yeah, it is good. You even have other people doing your podcast now. You got Daryl and Jonas doing it,
Yeah, I
which is
mean,
really good.
I wish more people took me up on it because, it's not the Gus Gonzalez podcast; it's the CRM MVP podcast.
Nice.
So I obviously have an open invite to all MVPs to come on board and record their show and release because I think one of the toughest parts is to get going, right? To
Mm,
configure everything up is so daunting, and every time I see Joel Lindstrom, I thank him for helping me out getting like going, get
yeah,
everything set up, and after I recorded the first one or two it was a lot easier. So, I know it's a lot of work. I know there's an investment part of it and time and money. And I want to make sure that all MVPs know that they can always just, they don't have to do all that work. They can always, record and get published on the CRM MVP podcast.
nice.
Yeah.
You had Megan Walker guest host as well. You've had who else have you had?
She was awesome. So solo, I think Megan and Daryl have been the only ones that did solo. I feel like Ulrich did one as well, but I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
if it was solo. But
a couple of years
yeah, I
ago.
know Mike hosted as well with a couple other people. And yeah, I mean, I wish more people would take me up on it and record more shows. There's one coming up. It hasn't been recorded yet, but I already have a volunteer for it, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's a topic that I recorded in the past by myself, and I wanted someone else's take on it. So I asked,
Nice.
the MVPs if anyone will be willing to take on that specific kind of approach to an episode and record their take on it. And I already got someone interested. So hopefully we get to do that. And I would be curious, the people watching this, if they have anyone in mind, any host they want to hear, as long as it's an MVP. I would love to ask him to come in and talk about whatever you want to hear. So the
Y-
show is for the community, not for me.
Nice. Yeah, I have all sorts of questions on that. One, what was your? So you said Joel helped you get started.
Yeah.
How did he help you get started? How did you get into podcasting? I guess I don't know if we've ever talked about that.
Well, it's a funny story. So I think I used to listen, and I still do. I listen to CRM Audio, and whenever it came out, and there was an episode. There was one thing that the guys from CRM Audio did, which was, and they still do very well, which is kind of talk about the news. What's the latest and greatest? What did Microsoft just do? What did they release? What does it mean for customers out there? They do a really good job with that, talking about the latest and greatest thing. And there was one episode they did where they were talking about. Am I flickering, or is that just me? I don't know. It feels like I'm flickering the
Okay.
video. Anyway,
It's all about
uh,
audio. It doesn't matter what the video says, right?
exactly. Right. Audio quality is number one. So no, they did an episode where they were talking about the brand new certifications Microsoft just released, and they were kind of talking about the what they thought about the process and the exams, and what they thought about the content for training. And there were just a bunch of inaccuracies that is not that they were the only ones who had him. I think that the community as a whole doesn't really understand what that process is like, the
Yeah.
the readiness process, creating exams, creating technical content, all of that. And I've been lucky to be involved in that process since CRM 2011 or 2013, something like that, working with Microsoft and other MVPs to help out put that together. Certainly not the only one doing that. And I kind of have a really good experience and picture of what that process is like. So that
Great.
gave me an idea of not really recording a response episode or something like that, but it
Yeah.
was sort of like, if I spend an hour talking about training, then that's an episode you can listen to a year from now or whatever it is, because that's
Right.
not going to change. And it's still the same, actually, the same process still. And you can listen to it and still kind of get it. I think that there was another show, I think it's called CRM Rocks, that is more about interviews and it's just talking to people out there. It wasn't really about news and it wasn't really about best practice. It was sort of like getting to know professionals out there. And then CRM Audio did the news. So I thought there was a gap for someone who actually work with Dynamics 365 for a living to come in and talk about the lessons that I've learned right over time. And like I always say on the show, what I'm talking about is my approach to it, right? If you look at an episode like the one about security, that's the way I set up security. I'm not saying it's the only way or the best way or whatever. That's the best way for me. And I learned that, kind of after lessons and all of that, just bumping along the way and learning my lessons. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the way I do it. Same thing with all of the other best practice episodes. It's just me talking about my own experience, and people can take some of it or all of it or none of it, but at least they get a different perspective. That's the mission with it. But yeah, going back to your original question, Joel, because of CRM Audio, and I respect those guys. Obviously, I promote them on my show as well.
Yeah.
I think people should listen to them if you're not listening to them already. I asked Joel for help to get going, right? I wanted to record that episode about training. I asked him, can you help me out? And he was all hands on, like, stop work, let me show you,
Nice.
share screen, step by step how to do it. So without Joel and the CRM Audio guys, CRM MVP podcast wouldn't exist, I think. So I owe him a lot, and I think that, again, if anyone's watching this and they don't listen to CRM Audio, they should tune in.
Nice. No, it's that is cool because I think that's kind of how I got into training as well. Is what was it, 4 years ago in Tampa when they had the summit? It was one of those things where they reached out, and I forget exactly how I got involved in the academy necessarily. I forget who reached out at the time, but they're like, "Hey, would you do a new admin training?" And that was something I think has done really well in it, because there's a lot of people that want that practical hands-on experience of like, okay,
Yeah.
it's great that there's exams and stuff like that, but what is the actual sort of like, when you talk about security and stuff like that, how does this actually get applied? Not like what can you do or like the theory behind something, but it's the actual application of it. And so
Right.
that's done really well. I think it's been interesting now that they've renewed the black belt course. I think there's been less people interested in the admin training, and they're going for the black belt stuff now that it's been
Right.
renewed, because it was 2013 or something like that was the last time it got touched. I forget. You created it. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So when I created it back, it was in 2011. So
Oh, okay.
it was in 2011, 2012 when I created the program. It was based in CRM 2011, and then I think that it went through an upgrade for CRM 2013, but then it hadn't been touched, like you mentioned, for a while. And it looks like you mentioned, now it got updated with the latest and greatest, and people still keep praising the program, which is great. I
Yeah.
didn't create it to be kind of like, unless I do it is not good enough. No, I think that, and if the content is good, I think the content speaks for itself. Anyone can deliver. You can deliver one of those belt sessions, and everybody should love it if
Right.
you're able to focus on those topics that I wanted to cover on that. And like you mentioned, it's not about here are the 10 ways to do something. It's about, here's the best way to do it, because all these other ways I've tried, and they always have pitfalls or whatever. So yeah, being able to talk to people and say, look, I know there's several ways to do this, but just do it this way. I've tried them all. This is the best one. People like to pay for that. It's giving people speed. It's
Yeah.
let me teach you something that it took me a year to learn, and I'll teach you in 10 minutes.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Just with the, I don't know. There's so many different ways, and I'm trying to make sure this is relaxed. You feel like you're very interviewee right now, and this is supposed to be after hours, man. Relax. Just
But this
um,
is kind of how it is, though. Like we went to the game, we had a beer, and this was it.
yeah, but you were
You
in like
know,
a nice, comfy chair last time, and now this time you're like all upright and like I don't know. Anyways,
this is pretty good.
but no, I just think there's so much with regards to creating content now. I think it's hard with a podcast like yours where you're like, what is going to be timeless? Because I record videos and stuff
Yeah,
like that, and these videos, man. I was looking back at some of the videos I created even last year, and they're way out of date because none of the screens are
yeah,
right. And it's just going to be this interesting time, either in content creation. I know Microsoft's trying to keep up with things, and they've done a really good job of putting out new content there. But I think that's why I've tended towards live streaming, is because with live
yeah,
streams, it's like here it is. This was a live thing. It's not like a training. It's not. There is some concepts that I tried to hit, and I've been trying to think if there's opportunity to record more concepts, and it's kind of the space that you're already in.
yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting time right now, especially as they
Yeah,
go through these
it's
releases.
pretty tough. Like if you think about the CRM MVP podcast, we've been out for over 2 years now. It was 2 years in May, so almost 2 years and a half now, and actually 2 years and a half now, and we've never missed an episode. Every 2 weeks since May of 2017, we've released. We've never missed one, and it gets pretty tricky, to
Yeah,
think about what can I talk about that 2 years from now someone can listen to it and still get something useful out of it. I think that there's a couple of episodes we have recorded that won't age well.
yeah,
Uh, for example, there was one episode where we talked about licensing changes. It was a pretty recent episode, like maybe last month or something. But that's because the licensing changed so much. I
right.
try to avoid episodes like that. But when you talk about the fact that now you could potentially license users that used to pay $115 per month
Mm-hmm.
for, you can now license them for $10 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so massive, such a massive shift that I knew I had to cover it. And I again, I try to stay away from that. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes I get to think about, get to go back into the list and see what topic is out there that I wanted to do a long time ago that um,
Is it still?
maybe I need to cover it right now. So, for
Yeah.
example, there's one topic that I've been putting away and away and away until I think it's time to unveil it, which is, and I've you included. I've gotten several people that want to learn more about like my past and like things that
Yeah.
I've done in the past and how I came to the United States in 2005 and like all of that personal story about me. And I just so the way I think about the podcast. So this is how I do it is I think about things I would like to listen to, right? So I
Right.
think about I would like to listen to someone talking about how they set up security. I would like to listen to someone talking about if there are several ways to do something, what's the best way to do it? Like we had an episode about this versus that. So if you can do it with
Yeah.
workflows and you can do it with flow, which one would you pick? I want to hear people talk about that. I would like to hear people talking about Forms Pro, and that's why Megan hosted that show. I would like to hear people talking about talking to Matt Barber and, like the last episode we released with Daryl and Jonas hosting. And if I interview Matt Barber, I would be talking about cars and planes because he's also learning how to fly like me. I don't have the technical depth that these guys have. So they are the best, people to talk to Matt Barber about technical stuff and the platform and solutions and all that stuff. So I like to put out episodes that I myself listen to, and I would like to listen to other people's takes on it. So that's why I've been avoiding the whole, talking about myself for an hour thing. I actually felt, kind of odd recording there was an episode called How to Train Like Gus Gonzalez by Gus Gonzalez.
Yeah.
And the reason why I released that episode is just because I'm such a big fan of that content. And the content is the CTT plus training content from CompTIA. So
Okay.
that was such an influential book in my career. It really taught me how to be a really good instructor, and because of that, I wanted to kind of share it. So over time, I I went through that program so long ago that over time I created like my own best practices. So that's why it was called How to Train Like Gus Gonzalez. But for the most
Right.
part, it was really a book review of the, CTT Plus Certified Technical Trainer certification. So that's why I've been putting that away. But we have a bunch of episodes lined up. I think we have like four. I don't have to do anything
Already.
until, yeah, I don't have to do anything
After
until
the New
like
Year's.
late December or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited about it. A lot of it was recorded during the UG Summit. They just finished a couple weeks ago. So every time we have a conference like that, I bring all my gear and we record a bunch of episodes. Right, I take advantage of it because I know there will be like 20 MVPs there or whatever. So I'm looking forward to the MVP Summit in March because I know that thing is gonna be like 3 months worth of content.
Got it.
MVPs like to speak their mind, so it's pretty
Just stick a
get
mic in.
people for it.
Yeah.
And people to it. So
We may have video a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on. But it looks like YouTube maybe says we're still live. So if we're still live, great. And if you're with us live, thank you for joining us. Feel free to drop something down in the chat.
do we have anyone tuning in and watching?
I think it says there's one person, but that may be me in the studio watching it live. So
I'm not even watching. That's how bad.
I know, right? You're there in person, man. It's real life. You're
Exactly,
IRL.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So no, it's good. The other thing I wanted to touch with and talk with you about, and I think it's going to be an interesting chat because and I know I keep looking all over the place, just making sure the stream's up. It looks like it.
Yeah.
Looks like it is. It's a one of the sessions I did at Summit was this power platform stuff. It doesn't apply to me, right? And so it was interesting because I think there's so much about this power platform. It's out there and stuff like that, and especially in the CRM space, because people that have been there for years, either there's kind of two different types. There's people that have been there and know what's going on, and they're like on the cutting edge and the bleeding edge, and when they see Power Apps change in the top left corner, they know they all of a sudden research it and stuff like that, and so they're watching things. And so, but then there's this other group that has no idea what's going on. And I found that that's the case especially for people that are on premise, they have no idea what this power platform is because their admin center didn't change, and they don't have any of that.
They're in their own world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just curious on, I don't know, have you come across that, or what do those conversations look like, or have you had so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's the truth is that for most customers that are on premise, they are not proactively monitoring what is coming out online. They don't have online, so why would they be monitoring that stuff? But
Yeah.
I just wonder, when will they have to monitor that stuff? Because like I've mentioned, and I always say that I don't know anything for a fact. If I knew, I would be under NDA, so I wouldn't be able to share this stuff. So for me, I think that it's only a matter of time until everything goes cloud, right? Until on-premise doesn't exist anymore. Now, I do see the advantage of Microsoft having on-premise because their largest competitor, which is Salesforce, doesn't have on-premise, right? They're not available on-premise, so that's a huge competition thing. And then the other thing is, when you put something on-prem and you don't have to maintain it at all, it's on the customer's hand essentially to maintain that stuff. It's just pure revenue, right? Pure profit, essentially. So whatever those customers are paying for licenses, you're not supporting them. You're not maintaining, updating their servers, making sure it's up, doing backups. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So all of that stuff is just money, right? It's really good profit that I don't think Microsoft is looking forward to get rid of it. At least they're not going to be ripping off a Band-Aid, right? I think that I haven't looked at the latest information, but I think that Dynamics 365 is guaranteed to be supported until like 2024 or something like that is the latest information. So it will still be around for a few years, but you can tell, like, until a couple of years ago, I don't know when it is, Seth, maybe you remember, but I remember where we were on a cadence where, online was updated every 6 months, but on-prem was every other time, like every year, like once a year. It was something like that.
You know what it was? It was 2015 or 2016 or something like that.
It was,
and they
it was
did
a
it for
couple
like
of years
a
ago.
year and a year and a half or whatever. And then they went to, it was
Right.
like, Okay, maybe you'll
Before
get
that,
a new update.
before that, it was every time. Every time online was updated, on-prem was updated. However, you wouldn't get the same features like, like I don't know, just to name one, like server-side sync will
Yeah,
be available online first. Stuff like that. It wouldn't apply to Exchange on-prem or whatever. Like there will be some features that will not work on-prem; they will only work online. But at least you get the same cadence. Like online and on-prem would be updated every time. Then they went into every other time. So online would get it by itself, and then on-prem would get it. Then online would get it by itself, then on-prem and online will get it. So then they did that, and now I feel that it's every like once every 6 months versus every 3 years or something like that. Like on-prem is now getting updated over every year. Even it's every couple of years.
yeah,
A lot of the features are held back tremendously. Like we've had features online that now they're not in preview anymore. Like they're just available, no problem, and they're not available on prem, and perhaps they'll never be available on prem. So you can clearly see that Microsoft is deprioritizing on prem, heavily. There's no on prem training content or certifications whatsoever.
interesting. Yeah,
Um, yeah, a lot of the new stuff is online only. So how long is that gonna last? Like how long until Microsoft says, you know what, this upcoming version of on-prem is the last version of on-prem?
yeah. I don't know.
After that,
Yeah,
we'll maintain it, but that's it, right? That's all you get.
yeah.
Um,
I
I don't
think
know.
it was interesting because I think one, I think we're back live, hopefully, and then the other part is I think that there's a, um, I think with what Matt Barber said, he was like, it's going to be released and it's going to be in 2020 sometime, and I think what they're waiting for is for it to sort of, we have this giant disparity right now, right, between the what's Power Apps and what they've been releasing for the last year or so,
Yep.
and then what the old UI looks like, right? And so we
Yep.
still have that old UI. I was working in it today, where you still have to go in there and do things. I mean, like subgrids. There was something to do with subgrids or form controls and stuff like that, where you just can't do it in the new UI. And I think they're
Absolutely.
waiting for those to be like in sync and be like, okay, here it is. Here's a release, and that's going to be version 10 or whatever it is, and that's going to be what they pushed on premise. But after that becomes the question, right? So when is the next time they're going to do that, right? Because it's been a year already. I don't think they released anything this year for on premise.
Yeah, it's
So
gonna be a while.
yeah,
And I agree with you. I think that we do have that kind of target, which is October of 2020, right?
hmm,
That's when the unified interface becomes the interface and the classic
yeah,
interface gets kind of deprecated and away with. So
and do that for on
I
premise as well at
guess,
the same time. Yeah,
yeah, I guess that's the goal. And they have been, again, enforcing the fact that that's going to happen in October of 2020. They keep telling people, go to the UCI, go to the unified
yeah,
client, because it's gonna go, the classic one is gonna go away. People are still stubborn. Like I talk to customers. I talk to them about at the UG summit, and they are like, and it's funny because it's sort of like, oh, I just don't want to tell my users that we're gonna change the unified interface. I'm like, well, don't tell them, but it's gonna change. Like,
yeah,
if you're online, it's going to change. So you either plan for it and tell them, and they're
hmm,
gonna be mad and they're gonna roll in the ground and whatever. But so what? Like, it's going to happen. You
yeah,
can't run away from it. It was kind of like, I went to a workshop with Tony Robbins. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's like this motivational speaker guy.
yeah.
He does,
You've mentioned it before, yeah.
seminars and stuff. Yeah, yeah. So I went through training with him, and he essentially said that for the people that are not saving for retirement, they're not investing, they're not doing anything, right? He recommended that you take 10% of anything you make and you put it away and invest it, right? And if you say that, but I live paycheck to paycheck, the
Yeah,
money's too low
too tight.
anyway, or whatever, he says, look, if the government came and raised your taxes by 10%, you would kick and scream and do whatever and yell or whatever it is,
Yeah,
but you're gonna have to pay those extra 10%.
nothing you can do.
So he said the way you see it is you take 10% and you see it as a tax to your future self. Like, it's a
Hmm.
tax that the government is putting on me. If they did it, I have to do it anyway.
Right.
There's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to go ahead and put it away.
Yeah.
And once you do that, once you see it that way, he said, and I agree with him on this. I'm not a big Tony Robbins fan, like a lot of people out there. I took training, but I'm skeptical still. But he said that once you see it as a tax, then you get a little bit more. I mean, I don't. Maybe reckless is not the right word, but you get a little bit less conservative on the way you invest it, right? You might
Huh.
invest in companies that you wouldn't otherwise invest, right? Because if you see it as a tax, like, is this just money I'm giving away to the government,
Right.
right? Then you be okay with investing on, companies that you don't know for sure if they're going to be a big hit,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you invest in Uber and that doesn't work well, and then you invest in another company and it works great.
Right.
You never know, right? On Tesla or whatever, like, you never know which one is going to work. But if you kind of switch
If you
your
want.
mindset and say, this is just money I'm paying to a tax, right? A tax money that I'm paying away, I'm never going to see it. Then if you really lose it all, then it is like a tax, right?
Right.
It goes away and there's nothing you can do. So I think that's kind of the way to see it with the unified interface is like, well, I'm concerned that my users are going to hate me. Like, but so what though? Like, it's going to happen. So get ready for it, prepare for it, do it right to make sure everything works, but switch because either you switch or you get switched. So, so do it yourself.
Yeah, and if you do it yourself over the next year, then you have that opportunity to to roll it out on your
Yeah.
terms. And so if you wanted to do different departments or whatever, you have that opportunity. I think the other thing that's interesting, we're working with a client right now, and they haven't switched yet, but I think it's an opportunity because back in the day when we first implemented, they didn't have the model-driven app type of concept, right? So there wasn't these different apps and so everybody was all in one. And so I think it's
Yep.
an opportunity to kind of go back and, hey, we're going to have to retouch this anyways and recheck some things. But this may be an opportunity to go ahead and break this into smaller pieces so that way everybody has their own app. And so use it.
Reconsider your licensing too. Like, your
Yeah,
licensing
true.
may change and you can save some money. Like, there's a ton of opportunity to rethink this thing rather than rush to it. So I think the only ones that are here to win are going to be partners like me and RSM and everyone, when everyone's rushes to get this done. And we're going to have to charge people more money to, work nights and weekends and help them out because, like I said, come October, they might just get switched,
Yeah.
whether they like it or not. So
Yeah.
just
End up
being a
being
lot of
support calls
warning.
at that point.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
no, it's yeah, for the on-premise folks, and again, they have a lot of control. I mean, they don't have to upgrade, right? Um, they could just leave it how it is, but again, it's gonna at some point hit end of life, and it's not gonna be supported anymore.
Yeah,
So, um,
there
but
is. I met also some people at the UG Summit where they were like, we're still in 2011 and we're looking
mm,
to upgrade to 2013 because 2011 is no longer supported. Like, Microsoft
yeah,
is killing support for 2011. So there's still companies out there that are not just on-prem, but they are like on the latest version of on-prem they can.
yeah,
Right? It's like they're made, and I always think with those companies, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's not all of them, but I always think with those companies that they miss the point of Dynamics, which is Dynamics is supposed to be an application that helps your company grow. It helps your business grow, right? It helps you get better at acquiring customers, delivering products and services, and then retaining those customers or extending the relationship you have with them. So if you see it that way, you
yeah,
should be first in line to leverage every single innovation that helps your company grow. So when Microsoft comes out and says, we're releasing UI flows on Power Automate, which is a new version of
yeah,
Microsoft Flow, you
which is
should
super cool.
immediately start thinking, how can I use this thing to help me get better at acquiring customers, delivering products or services, or retaining those customers, right? How can I leverage these tools to be better than my competitors, right?
Yeah,
To innovate faster than my competitors so I can provide solutions they can provide. So I can, create new product offerings that maybe no one is thinking about yet. That should be the approach to it, is taking these tools to make your company better and more successful than your competitors. So for companies that are sitting out there that are now getting forced to upgrade from 2011 because support is going away, then they're clearly missing the point, right? Or they work with a partner or with no partner that help them see that this is a business application, that you should be at the forefront of it, trying to figure out how to make the most out of it rather than sitting behind and, waiting until you get forced to upgrade. That's not the right way to do it.
yeah, but it's tough, man. It's not. I don't know. It's interesting, right? So, I've seen clients that get stuck on 2011 or whatever, and it's
Yeah.
because the guy that implemented it went on to a different job or whatever. He's no longer with the company, and so the person that had that vision that says, "Hey, Dynamics is growing. It's going to go somewhere. We're going to be able to use this," and it's Microsoft's continuing to invest. He's the one that leaves the company, and then you have somebody just supporting it, right? And so
Yeah.
the person that had the vision is is gone, and so the company in some ways has lost a vision.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know if it's. I think people are interested in the other part is people have day jobs, right? And so unless you have a dedicated IT department, sometimes you don't have that luxury of, hey, what just came out at Ignite this week? And
Yeah.
so I was playing with it on the bus for the UI flows, and they're really cool. And I think there's an opportunity for partners to use it for regression testing and stuff like that,
Yeah.
to be able to go through there and to automate those testing. And hey, just run these scripts, make sure that during an upgrade or whatever that it doesn't break. So there's a whole area for RPA, so that robotic process automation. Um,
Right.
and
Yeah,
so,
no, and I think that, if you have a day job, if you have someone who left or whatever, then pick a partner that is going to help you
true,
take care of that, right?
right?
Because again, the idea is that the investments you make will generate enough revenue to pay your partner and make money on top of, your competitors. So it should be a solution that helps your company grow. So if you don't have time to stay on top of it, there are companies out there and professionals dedicated like you to learning all this stuff and figuring out how customers can make the most out of it.
Yeah,
So just get on a good relationship. If you currently have a partner that is not doing that for you, then reach out to them and see if you can change that or find some other company that does that.
yeah.
There's
It's
tons of good partners out there.
there's a lot of good partners, and
Yeah.
it's fun at Summit because you hang out with all these people, and they're um, the sessions are good, and then the after hours and stuff like that, like tonight, where you just sit around and talk and have a beer and talk about life and talk about work and talk about the crazy things Microsoft is doing and releasing and changing Flow to Power Automate or whatever it is now.
Right.
So, but yeah, there's a lot of smart and great people out there that do
Hmm.
that. So,
Yeah.
the other question that came up during that session was, can they use, so even if their database is on premise, with things like Power Automate, they could still connect to it and use Flow, even though their data can't like live out there.
Yeah.
They could still use some of this Power Platform, even if the data is on premise, which I think is interesting. You just connect to like a SQL server type of thing. And so just like you would connect to a SQL server, it's not CDS or anything, but it is an opportunity to go ahead and use Flow and use some of these other things and have it connect into Exchange or have it connect into um, these different apps. Even though
Yeah.
you're not in the cloud with CRM, you're still have that ability to go ahead and leverage some of the Power Platform. And so that was an interesting discussion that we had during that course. So yeah, so it's neat, just how it
Yeah.
is a
I mean,
platform now.
I think one of the things that I always think about is that these tools were created to work online, and that by some miracle, some of them work on prem, and you can kind of force them to work on prem. But I mean, honestly, they weren't designed to work on prem. Yeah, you can, add some gateway or something to try to make them work on prem, but I don't think you will get the same kind of,
No,
response and behavior and integration that you get when you're all in the cloud in one platform, one CDS, everything connected.
yeah, for sure. But it is
Yeah.
something that if they, hey, my boss won't let me do this, but we have that opportunity to automate, you can still use that tool. So the other question that came up around that, it was Flow at the time, but they were asking what happens because they were trying to replace workflows, right? So if you
Right.
replace workflows with Flow, where does Flow run at that point? So if my requirement and the point of us to stay on premise is to keep control of all of our data, um, are they gonna like release Flow, sort of the Flow engine out as an on premise offering then, um, as part of that? I don't know.
Yeah. No, good. I mean, there's a lot of gaps, right, on flow, and I've talked about this before, where there's workflows right now are irreplaceable. You cannot replace them with flow.
For
I mean,
sure.
flat out. There's no custom steps in flow, so the people who have spent countless hours and millions of dollars
Yeah.
creating their own custom steps, like that's not gonna work. And even if Microsoft comes up with like a magic bullet, magic solution to workflows and flow, like let's say you install some solution that you click a button and it uploads a workflow into Flow with all the steps and everything in it. All those custom steps are not going to work. They're just flat out. You can't account for that. Not that I can think of. Like, obviously, I'm not a super technical person, but how do you count for those steps? Like, some of those steps, like flat out, will call out an ERP system or some other system. Like, we're not talking about like adding business days and like some of these easy
Yeah.
third party workflow solutions that MVPs have created and released for free. Yeah, you can account for those. But there are companies out there that will literally have a step that will package something, generate a PDF, upload it to some, in-house document management system, store somebody's database, or like they do all kinds of crazy stuff. You
Right.
just can't design for all of those potentials for millions of different variables
But
out there, right?
but what do they
So
have to do? I mean, it would just be the connections, right? Just like a workflow calls it and it runs the code. I mean, is there not a way for like Flow to do the same thing where hey, in this step in the workflow,
I
it
don't know.
calls. I'm not a developer, so I don't.
Flows
But
right now, flows cannot run synchronously. So,
yeah, true.
if
That's
they
another
have to get over
large
that one
issue.
first,
Yeah.
I think, and then they can go over the other ones. I think that what will happen is that probably workflows are not going to go away, anytime soon. I think that maybe, flows will continue to evolve and give us more and more capabilities, like synchronous flows will be a thing, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
I think that for some custom steps, maybe we'll have some solution that will evaluate it and figure out, yeah, this is good, I can do it in flow, and kind of translate it. But I don't think it will be 100% perfect.
No.
I don't think Microsoft wants it to be 100% perfect. One of the arguments that I make is, why does Microsoft care if we continue to use workflows or flow? Like, I get the fact that we're switching now into a more of a consumption model where, API calls have limits and you have to pay extra and stuff like that. I get that. But, if a company wants to pay extra to use workflows, just let them do it. What's the big deal? And I get it. I get that the workflow designer is not on the unified interface and they don't want to invest money on creating a new workflow designer or whatever. Just leave the old one. Like, we've been using the gold designers in CRM 3.0 and it's still there. Like, the UI is still the same from like CRM 4.0 and no one is complaining. So just leave it. Leave me let me die in peace with my original workflow editor, and don't mess with it. At least that's what I think.
I love how you're like, on the one hand, you're like, dude, like you need to be in the cloud. You get the latest. It's the greatest. Do it. And then on the other hand, you're
Workflows are in
like,
the cloud. Workflows are in the cloud though. So,
but they're updating. You need to be up to
right.
date, man. Microsoft's trying to help you win the next client, but
I understand.
no, it's funny. The other one, oh, have you added a timeline recently, like on an entity and stuff? Because they've updated
I
the.
guess so.
So I did it this afternoon. Is I created a
Okay.
custom entity and then added activities and notes. You can add activities in the new UI in the Maker
Mhm.
experience, but you can't add the notes. So you have to go switch it to classic, add the notes, so that way then you can add the timeline. But you have to go to the classic to add the timeline
Yeah.
as a control. And in that
Yeah,
new
there are things that are missing for sure.
yeah, and in that control though, it's there's a new tab across the top where it's you can select which activities to put in there. So you can
Hmm.
either do tasks, appointments, and all the because you have a long list of like activity types, right? And
That's
so
true.
now
You
you
don't
can
want
control it.
faxes and letters and
Yeah,
all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So that was kind of cool. So they are still updating the old UI for that experience, which I
Yeah.
thought was interesting. So
Sometimes it's hard because I get to play with the stuff before it comes out. So when people tell me like, "Have you done this?" And I'm like,
you're
"Have
like,
I? Can
yeah,
I talk about it?"
yeah.
But
you,
yeah,
you
no,
tell me if
I've
you've
seen
done
that one.
this, and then I'll tell
I've
you.
seen that one. But there are things that are missing. Like, I've been
Hmm.
trying to use the form editor a lot more, the new one. But
Yeah.
there are things that I really really miss that are not in it. For example, the fact that on the classic one, I can like double click, go to the details tab, click on edit, and be immediately on the field editor. I can change, whether it's the requirement level. I can change different things. I can't do that from the form editor right now. You cannot go into the field editor from the form editor. So you kind of have to save
Yeah.
it, go back, find the field. It's like a major inconvenience. So what
Yeah.
I typically do is I just switch to classic. Like, let me just go to classic. Let me do what I need to do and then go back into the new one. So I've
Yeah.
been forcing myself to use the new stuff because I do like the new one. I like the fact that when you're editing the form, for example, it's showing you like the actual form, not the form in editor mode. It's
Right.
showing you like the full on form. So I love that. But at the same time, there are things that are missing that I really, really miss. you can't really see if there are any libraries and firing on
True.
change. You have to go into the field to see. It's just
I haven't tried.
there are
Yeah.
things that are missing from the classic that I hope they add them soon.
Yeah, because the other one you're talking about with the double clicking on the forms and stuff like that. Looks like my
Yeah,
camera just went out, so we'll see if I
I
can't
can
get
see
that
you.
back. Yeah, so I have to go with the dual camera setup on this. So
Wow.
yeah,
Do we
man.
need to see you from two different angles?
Yeah. I got to keep. Yeah, there we go. So now it's back. We'll see. I'm not sure. Trying with a different battery. Anyways, we'll talk about Streamlabs some other time. One video feed can't go to two different applications, and that's what we're running into. So, but but yeah, so your display field on the form can be different than your display in the list of field, right? And so if you're on
Yeah.
form A, it's full name. If you're on form B, it's name. And so using the classic, you use to double click on it. And it's like, this is the field I want. What is
Change
the
the
schema name?
label.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
So yeah, that's
There
a
are
huge thing they
things.
need.
Yeah, there are things that are missing, but again, they keep adding them, and
True.
the goal is October 2020. So by October 2020, I expect all this stuff to be there. So
Is it both the maker experience as well as the user experience? I guess I don't know what
I mean, it's supposed to be everything inside Dynamics, right? And that includes all of the customization and configuration stuff.
they need to be.
So
They'll be busy for sure,
I
though.
assume, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a lot of
that's what they're shooting for. So
yeah.
make it happen.
Do it. Yeah. Um. No,
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting MVP summit in March.
you think so?
I'll tell you that much.
With the new stuff coming out and what they're trying to do, or with
Yeah,
the
I mean,
MVPs
I
being like,
think
dude, what the heck are you doing?
no. I think 2020 is gonna be a very interesting year. I think that the new leadership with James Phillips
Yeah.
and all the other guys, Charles Lamont, Ryan Jones, etc. They've been working with Dynamics now for a couple of years, maybe a year and a half, something like that. They haven't been there for a long time. So 2020, I feel that is about year 3 or 4 for them. So it's starting to get into a really good rhythm. So I can't wait to see. There's always brand new stuff. Like we're always seeing things that they're working on, but always at the MVP Summit we get to see the latest and greatest, like stuff that
Yeah.
they were working on earlier that week, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about 2020. I'm excited
Nice.
about the summit, and yeah, getting to see what they're gonna be releasing and what they're thinking about for 2021. So it's always next year with the summit.
Yeah. I will make a quick plug for our user group here in Seattle because every chapter
You have
meeting.
sponsors and everything. That's cool.
Yeah.
Let's take a break and talk about Corona.
Corona.
Whatever.
Yeah. So our
You gotta
sponsors
get
this
some good
evening.
sponsors.
I wish, right?
Yeah,
We talked about
exactly.
this last time.
Show is brought to you by.
But Dynamics communities. Anyways, so our chapter meetings, we typically have a feedback session with Microsoft. So we sign an NDA, and the product team comes down because we meet at Advanta, and so they come down and saw some stuff that they've since released with the admin center and stuff like that. And so when you talk about that opportunity to see what they're actively working on, it's cool. And they ask you, okay, there's a button here. What would you expect this button to do? Or if we said environments in this context, what do you expect it to mean, type of thing. And so
That's cool. I
yeah,
like the fact that you guys are getting exposed to kind of what the MVP Summit is like. You
yeah,
get an hour of that. We get 4 days of that, so it kind of looks the same. But it's just a lot more extensive, I guess.
yeah. And that would just, it's neat, but it's
Yeah.
very, I mean, because you're thinking the whole time. I mean, it's not a sit back and watch the show type of thing. So
Yeah, I mean, I think the coolest part about the summit too is that you get to show what you're working on,
mhm.
but then you get the perspective of people from old angles,
Yeah,
right? So because we have MVPs that are customers, we have
good,
MVPs that work in public sector only, we have MVPs that are like me implementing these things. Some other ones are developers, some other are project managers. So you get kind of tackled from all angles, right?
yeah,
I'm looking at it from the solution architecture perspective. Someone else is looking at it from a different angle. So you get, all the feedback from different places. And I feel that, we go there knowing that. And I think that in a lot of cases, because they do what you're talking about as conduit sessions at the UG Summit as well,
true,
or at
yep,
least they used to do that. I don't know if they did it this year. But in a lot of cases, because I've attended conduit sessions during the summit too, and people are more like, wow, this is cool. Like all of the feedback is like, that's awesome,
Yeah.
right? Where we are like, yeah, of course, all this stuff is awesome. You're showing us new stuff, but now let's be like devil's advocate and like think about how would a customer react to this? How would a solution architect use this, and so on and so forth. So
Yeah. No, that is good.
yeah.
The other one I'd be curious. Are you I hear rumors that they're going to do a D365 Saturday around the summit timeframe? It's
Uh,
on the website. I don't know if I know anybody that's on it, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. You know, Raz, who's a CRM MVP,
yeah,
he created Dynamics 365 Saturdays. You know, the Saturday events are not his idea. It's something that has been around for SharePoint and other
sure. Yep.
products in the past, but he was the one who started it for Dynamics 365. I've attended, I don't know, like 10 of those. And I love them. I love the Saturday events. I'm trying to organize the one for Atlanta
Oh,
early
nice.
in 2020 as well. So I'm gonna put those dates on the website. But I really enjoy that. I think they should make it happen. I'm not sure how that's gonna work, because if they do it like the Saturday before the summit, it'll be more MVPs than attendees. You know, because you have like 50 or 60 or 70 of us in town. Like
Yeah.
there are many CRM MVPs that they can only go to one conference a year, and that's the
This is the one
MVP
to pick.
summit,
Yeah.
right? So you get a ton of people that don't normally go to, they just don't go to conferences normally,
Yeah.
and now they're in Seattle. And there's this other thing happening, so they'll be there. And if I was Raz, and I don't know if Raz is gonna watch this or not, but if I was Raz, I would say put him in. Like all those MVPs that don't typically go to conferences, like
Yeah.
I'm happy to. I don't think he was considering me anyway, but if he was considering me to be a speaker, I would gladly give my spot to Leon Tribe or whoever, you know, it's out of town from really far away,
Yeah.
that doesn't get to attend many of those, you know, to speak at the conference. So I'm glad to do that, and I think most MVPs that constantly speak at these Saturday events
Yeah.
would be happy to give their spots so someone else speaks at the event.
Yeah. No, that would be really cool.
Yeah,
It's when I think Julie acted one a year ago now,
right,
here in Seattle, and it was I'd say 75% Microsoft. It was Microsoft employees
right,
that were attending, which was kind of cool. I think that was the first time that I'd seen sort of them come out in force. And Pervin, who helps with the communities and stuff like that, he attends our chapter meetings and stuff. And there's been a couple of times where he's like, "Hey, we had a question about this. Can you come down?" And so
right.
he's like pulling down the product team to answer a question at the meeting and stuff. So it's
That's
been
the
really,
advantage of being at Advanta.
yeah,
Advanta is
dude.
a great place for that.
Yeah. So again, just that's my. It's not even a sponsor spot.
Is that why you won the Chapter of the Year award?
It's.
Just because of the access to the product team?
I don't know how that got picked. We've been pretty steady at 30 plus people coming in typically. So I don't know what. I don't know how they figured it out, but yeah. So I
I'm sure
figured,
it was bribes.
yeah, that's.
Yeah, I think it
Well, I
was
can't say
bribes.
that it was, but
Wink, wink.
but
Yeah.
it's good, man. So what's going on? I don't know. Um, totally blanked. With
What
Elevate.
else should we talk about?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going. But what are you up to with Elevate? I know when I was out there, you
Just
going live with a client and stuff, and
Yeah, so that's still going. So yeah, we you know we're implementing Dynamics for a few customers. We're not a really high volume partner. We don't have a whole lot of customers. We like to work with specific companies. So it's always interesting when you go to a large event like the UG Summit, for example, and I get people coming to me and asking me if I can work with them or be their partner. And sometimes it's kind of tough to tell people no, because we're not the right partner for everyone. And I think most partners out there will say they're not the right partner for everyone, as well. So for us, we're working with a couple of companies right now, taking them live with Dynamics 365. Awesome teams, and we love working with them, and we yeah, it's a little bit challenging on a couple of these projects, because they're large implementations with goals that are very how do you call it, ambitious, I guess is the right word.
yeah,
But I love those. I love the timelines, the tight collaboration that we have with those teams, and I'm excited about it. So yeah, just implementing dynamics for a living. That's what I do. Once in a while, I get to do a class. We did a couple of classes. You were there too at the
Yeah.
UG Summit, helping people get certified and delivering for the first time the Black Ops class, which was for CRMUG black belts that wanted to take it to the next level. So I designed this thing called Black Ops. So we deliver that, had 5 people on that. And yeah, so once in a while, I do get to deliver training, which I really enjoy. I essentially get paid to talk about dynamics for, 8 hours straight. So I'm always good for that. But for the most part, we just implement dynamics for companies out there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I appreciate you hooking me up with the training and stuff like that at Summit this past time, and that was a lot of fun. I had 3 people in the MB 210, the sales exam, and so all
Yeah.
3 of them later that week came up and said they passed, and so that was really
That's
exciting.
awesome.
Um,
Great stuff.
because you never know, right? So like you teach some of these other classes, and hopefully they can implement something. But when you teach for an exam, it's like, okay, this is on you. Hopefully I
And that's how
was
you
able to meet
measure
you.
success, right?
Yeah.
Are the students passing? And for me, I don't know if I think I had 9 people on mine because I
Wow.
had the core exam. I
Yeah.
had the first one, so most people need to take that anyway. So I get to kind of steal a little bit from everybody. But everyone who took the exam, at least as far as I know, passed. So
Nice.
that is kind of how you measure success on that class. It's not if you get good reviews, because I think that some instructors, because they're MVPs or whatever, they'll get people on their side, like, oh,
You
so
get
and
an
so
extra
is
star
awesome.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah. But are you passing the test? Like, that is how you measure success. Can you apply what you learn and actually make sense of it? That's how you measure success. So the fact that people pass your class, I think, is a good indication that it was successful. I think that people passing the exam on my class is a good indication that the system works, right? The
Yeah.
people can come into one of these exam crams and pass. So yeah, that's all good, because that means that if in Barcelona they decide to do it, we'll get the call to go to Barcelona and go and deliver that. So
Yeah.
I know I got the call to do it in Orlando because I was invited to do it in Amsterdam, and
Oh, nice.
everyone who was there, I think I had 15 students or
Holy
something.
moly,
I
man.
had a lot more, and they all passed. So
Nice.
they knew that I can deliver for the MB200 exam.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad that they pass yours, and hopefully we get to do it together again in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And then Australia. I don't know if they do in Australia. I'll do it too.
Yeah, I
Why
think the Australian one is more likely for me. I'll be a little preoccupied in March. So
not?
yeah, yeah. So exciting things are happening in March as well. So
Right, right, right.
yeah.
Absolutely, I
So
understand.
but no, it'll be um it is. It's cool. It's a neat opportunity, and I think it was interesting reading Mark's blog today, and I think this is kind of topical, but just hearing,
Yeah.
like you mentioned before, that opportunity for others to speak, I think it's really cool. I think it's an awesome opportunity for people to,
So what
uh,
was it? Can you give
yeah.
me a summary?
So the synopsis was, so Mark is, I don't know, him and Steve are another type of group, right? So we enjoy hanging out and talking and whatever. And I feel like we talk about they throw grenades and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, I don't. Anyways, um, it's after hours, so Mark and Steve,
Right. Yeah.
if you've made it this far,
They're sleeping.
thank you for
Don't worry
watching
about
all the way through. But yeah, they're definitely sleeping right now. Mark may be up since he moved to New Zealand. Anyways,
it. Yeah.
his title was anyways it was about diversity, and I think it's a very it's very topical discussion, and it's something that people are very sensitive to. And so the way he approached it was um, in some ways he didn't get picked to speak at Ignite this year, and so he was a little frustrated by that, I think is the best way to put that. And so he essentially, it was a blog article about him working through that emotions and his sort of initial reactions. And he was like, hey, at first he was frustrated. He's like, why was I not selected, even though I have many years
How
experience in
dare
this?
you?
Yeah. But on the other hand, it was that thing, and it was fun sort of reading through his article, and just it was kind of like not necessarily a diary, but it was one of those things where it's like, after I sort of had that first thought, the next thought was, well, if I'm the one on stage, then I'm not learning from somebody else. And if I'm the one on stage, then there's somebody that wasn't on stage because of that. And so he's like, I really am. I want to promote others, have other people promoted. There is that part where, I don't know, the fact you and I sit in front of a camera and talk and hang out and stuff like that, and are willing to put it
Right.
on YouTube. Like, there's a part of you that enjoys doing that, right? And so there's a part that enjoys performing, but at the same time, it was just sort of him working through that emotion where, like, if I'm the one on stage, then I may have taken somebody else's spot. Not necessarily taking somebody else's spot, but there's somebody that's not on stage because of that. And so I think it's been interesting for me as somebody that's coming up. You know, at RSM, it's easy because there's associates, senior associates. There's like a defined ladder that you kind of go up. And as I became a manager, and
There's a hierarchy.
yeah, there's a hierarchy. But as I became a manager, it was this. It's no longer what Seth knows and what Seth can do, but what can the team do? And so taking myself back a step and saying, hey, yeah, I could embed Power BI into a portal, or I could extend this, but I need somebody else to learn this. I need the college hire to have that opportunity to present in front of the client, in front of the CEO, and to do it in a safe way. So again, have them present internally first, and have them train internally, and then eventually, I mean, it's kind of that concept of at the user group this past time with the advanced fine training, I was asked to present because I had presented before, and then had the opportunity to have Audrey, who's my co-chapter leader, come along and actually present. And she presented at least half of it, if not more, of that
awesome.
presentation, because again, it wasn't something that she had been asked to do, but given the opportunity, she was really good at it. And so it was tough kind of taking that half step back and being like, okay, it's not the Seth show, but it's Audrey, and giving her an opportunity. And so that was cool. And people do step up a lot of the times, most of the time. I don't know if I've had somebody not step up and just like deliver it and knock it out of the park. So anyway, so that was his article. And just how it ties into what you were talking about with the MVP summit, and like your willingness to kind of take that step back and let somebody else present.
I mean, that's an interesting perspective, and I think I agree with them on that. I think that not everyone will agree with that approach to it. I think that there are people out there that feel very entitled to, like you know, if you didn't approve me to speak at the whatever insert event name here, then how dare you? Like, who do you think you are? Kind of thing. And I don't know. I'm never like that. I think that there are other professionals like that. You hear from MVPs and non-MVPs as well. I've had, I don't know if this was customers or just users or whatever, always say like, I could be delivering this session. I just didn't apply for it. Well, why not? Like, just go for it.
Do it.
Go do it. Yeah. Apply for it. But for me, I don't, I don't really think about that. Like for the business application summit, it was here in Atlanta, so it was like 30 minutes away from my house. I applied for 4 sessions and I didn't get selected. I didn't go and complain to anybody.
Yeah.
I also didn't go and see who spoke in my place either. Yeah. So I'm not at that level like Mark to go and say like, well, I wonder who else they picked to speak on my behalf, especially because I think that the topics were things that I had seen before. I think that for that specific conference, they wanted more Microsoft people to speak at, and we meet with Microsoft on a constantly basis. So it was sort of like, okay, I've seen that before, and I just decided to go into the expo floor and talk to people and answer questions and stuff like that. The UG had a booth there, so I was able to stand there and just help out and whatnot. So that was kind of my approach with the Business Application Summit. But I don't go around, telling people that, that if they don't pick me, I'm gonna be hurt or
I don't think that's the way he was coming across.
I don't think too much about that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, but no, I'm not talking about Mark. I'm talking about all the people that
in
are
general.
like that.
Okay.
I know Mark is not like that, but at the same time, like I realized that there's no special treatment out there. Like I feel that because of the UG Summit, for example, this year I was involved with 10 sessions. I think people will think that there's some kind of special treatment, like, oh, Gus clearly like he's bribing these people. No, I submitted over 20 sessions and I got picked for
you only had 50% accepted, man.
No. I got approved for 7 of them. So about 30% approval, and then I was involved in some other ones. And people invited me to be a panelist or invited me to co-present or whatever. Just like I invited some
Yeah.
people to co-present with me on mine.
Right.
So that's always good. So I was involved somehow with 10 sessions. And I just play a numbers game. And I told people, I like, well, they should have a track called the Gus track because you're delivering so many sessions. And I'm like, you can also deliver a lot of sessions if you A, submit a bunch of sessions because you're going to get declined for most of them,
Right.
and B, submit good sessions.
Yes.
Like, because that's the thing. And it's like, I was, and I think you were too, on the panel that kind of, reviews all the sessions to kind of merge some of them. And there's only so many, like, top 10 tips to use flow sessions, right? You get
Yeah.
30 sessions submitted like that. That's 29 speakers that are going to get a no,
Right.
right? So if you, and I tend to stick with like an MVP brand, right? So setting up security like an MVP.
Right.
Now I'm not competing with a bunch of other people. I know you won't. I know you won't be submitting that session.
I can't
I
submit
know
that
that.
session. That's true.
Yeah, I
Set
know
up
that a bunch of
like
other
an
people won't
MVP.
be able. Right.
Like,
I know a
and I'll
bunch of people won't
just
be
do your
able to do that.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
So
gonna sit here and listen to Gus's podcast. Let me just hit play real quick. Oh, okay,
right.
there
So
we go.
if you if you if you are work in the public sector, for example,
Yeah.
and you say how the government of Indiana uses blah blah blah,
Yeah.
chances are you're not going to compete with someone else on that session. And if
Right.
your session is good, your title and the content sounds good, you're probably going to get accepted, right?
Yeah.
But if you submit a session about flow and you have a flow expert already that submitted that session,
Right.
there's no chance that you're going to get picked because someone else has delivered that in the past and has done such a good job with it. So if you look at all my sessions, I try to stay away from general stuff
Yeah.
that I know 100 other people are going to submit. They can do those sessions. I try to stick with stuff that I know I'm the only one who's going to deliver because it's my own best practice. No one else is going to deliver my best practice, right? So
In the room
that's kind
next
of
door,
how
I'm
I
gonna do
approach.
the bacon best practice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's what I tell people. Yeah. Like Clarissa Simpson, for example, she
Yeah.
works for Ford. Ford, it's a massive company.
Yeah.
If she submits a session that says how Ford uses Power BI,
Nobody can
I
touch that.
promise you they're gonna select that thing,
Yeah.
right? She's gonna get picked. So I think people get upset that they don't get picked, but that's because they just don't know how to play this game for conferences. And it's the same for exams. It's the same for certifications. There are certain things you can do to kind of increase your chances. And even though I know how to play the game or whatever, I've been over 50 conferences. I started working with Dynamics. The I still get declined for most of it. So if I know how to play the game and I only get 30% of my sessions approved, what are the chances of a brand new person that doesn't really know how to play it to get approved? It's tougher. So I always tell people to, partner up with a mentor, someone who they like how they speak or they have seen at conferences before, and kind of be like, hey, can we present together? Or at least can you help me out, submit this stuff. Like I see some sessions submitted that I'm like there's just no chance that, yeah, it's like,
how CRM on premise works on
yeah,
2011.
no, what can charts do out of the box? Like, forget it. Like that's
It's
never.
like 5
Come on,
minutes. Yeah.
immediate decline. Like, yeah, no. But you're telling me how Ford uses charts? Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
watch that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's you have to play the game a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't know if that makes sense to be how an MVP gets selected to present it and like do a podcast on that, but make a podcast, or maybe we'll talk about that next time, and we'll like, okay, here's how you do this, how you get selected for the next conference.
Here's how I do.
Yeah, exactly. So I like how you switch that all of a sudden. You're like, how I do it. It's not how you get. It's how
That's
I do
how
it.
I do it.
This is how I do it.
That's how I do it. If you want to know how I do it, you have to pick my session because no one else is going to deliver that, right?
Right.
And like I said, in the vast majority of cases, the answer is we don't want to know how you do it. Like, I just straight up get declined. Yeah. We don't care how you do
That's
that.
funny. Now there is, I think it was 50% as well. I think I submitted 2 for something because I already knew that I was speaking at some of the pre-academy stuff.
Yeah, like you submit 2 sessions, like you're asking to not get picked.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because your sessions are gonna be, the risk is huge that someone else already thought of that.
Right.
Right. Even if you submit very, very early on,
It doesn't.
chances are someone else is going to submit that later on. And if they apply a little twist, just a little more,
Yeah.
thing to it, you get it. Like,
Like,
what I tell
I think
people
it's the
is,
on-prem thing, man. I think that's why I got picked for
yeah.
mine.
So if you're not an MVP, here's my tip, right? To get almost certainly you're going to get picked to speak at a conference. So here we go. So this is my tip. Every session you submit, number one, submit more than one session.
Yes.
So that is a given.
Do it.
But every session you submit should have one or four elements, right? Just to increase your chances of getting picked. One is talking about the best whatever, right? Best way to do this,
Top.
best way to implement that. What's the best thing? What's the worst? That is number two.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about worst,
Weird shit break.
things that happened to me in a project, worst things that, the worst project I've ever done, people will want to listen to that,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
That's
And those
why
are
one of
super
our,
helpful.
yeah, that's why one of our most popular episodes on the podcast is, the story of a project disaster. Everyone wants to see a train wreck, right?
That was a good story.
So, yeah. So if you submit a session to say, here's the worst project I've ever done, I mean, your chances of getting approved are like 99.9%, right? Everyone wants to see that. But remember that your sessions are picked by people.
Sure.
And people are going to pick the stuff they would like to attend. So if you talk about, like, if you submit a session, how CRM caused a divorce, I'm telling you, 100% that session is going to make it, right? So I'm just saying, like, you have to think about that. So best and worst are always going to be a seller. And then the last and first are the last two. So if you submit the lessons I learned on my last implementation, my last job, my last project, my last plugin, whatever, that's always interesting. And my first, it's always interesting too. First time I implemented this, first time I switched to the unified interface, first time I used Power BI, like that's always interesting. That gets people's attention. So again, best, worst, first, and last, those four things will increase, including that in the title of your session, will always increase your chances. And I like to include like an MVP on top of that. So I always say best
if you
XYZ
can do
as
that.
an MVP.
Yeah.
So I get to stack them and increase my chances even more. But like an MVP there's always the equivalent of that for anyone. You can say like a chapter leader or like a manager at a massive partner or like a whatever. There's always something you can add for that extra sizzle. And like I said, just think of sessions that you would like to see yourself. I think people shoot themselves in the foot. They could be a great session, but their titles are just lame. Like no one wants to go see that thing. So just think about that next time.
There you go. I'll put that in the description. Like click here, and this is a Gus Gonzalez typically 60-minute podcast.
Like
here's like 4 minutes of it.
Submitting sessions like an MVP. Yeah, go to.
Which I can't say, and that's again, exactly. You put your spin on that.
Yeah.
Submitting sessions like an international speaker. I mean, whatever you want to do, but no, it's good, man. Well, cool. We'll keep the people wanting more, and so I think we'll go ahead and sign off now. And it's pretty late there, and we'll do this again. I don't know. We'll figure out a cadence, maybe.
Whatever.
People get a little more insight before we just.
A good excuse to drink a beer. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do it again.
Well, cool, guys.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to submit them to you or me. I'm sure we'll be happy to answer those, or at least suggestions for future episodes as well.
Yeah.
You
Exactly. So, cool. If you were here live, appreciate it. If you weren't here live, thanks for watching all the way through. We will connect with you next time. As you can see down in the descriptions and down below us, we have our websites as well as our Twitter handles. So make sure you reach out to us, and we look forward to catching you next time.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Gus.
See ya.